Picture the scene, the Eastern Mediterranean at dusk. You've got freighters lining up for the Suez Canal, the Red Sea is humming with patrols, and then this gray silhouette just appears on the horizon. And it's not just some destroyer, it's one of Egypt's helicopter carriers. So the real question isn't whether Egypt has a military, it's just how powerful is that force really? Okay, so before we get into all the hardware and the nitty-gritty numbers, just take a second. Right now, based on what you already know, where would you put Egypt's military in that whole regional pecking order? Let's see if your answer changes by the end of this. And this is the key right here. You have to understand that Egypt's military isn't just about being big. It has been deliberately built for a very specific job, shaped by its unique spot right at the crossroads of global trade and regional chaos. Its power is defined, first and foremost, by its geography. To really get a handle on the force we see today, we've got to rewind the clock a little. See, Egypt's modern military posture wasn't built overnight. It was forged in the fire of some incredibly critical historical moments that completely rewired its thinking. These three moments, they are everything. The absolutely crushing defeat in 1967, the tactical brilliance of crossing the canal in 73, and then the huge strategic pivot of making peace with Israel in 79. This is why Egypt's arsenal looks the way it does today. It's this big mix of American, European, and Russian gear. And that's not messy. That's a deliberate choice. It gives their planners something totally priceless: resilience.
So let's take to the skies and see how this all builds up. Egypt's air power strategy isn't just about having a bunch of cool fighter jets. It's about creating a deep, layered defense that protects its most valuable stuff on the ground.
Now, what's really interesting here is the mix. Think of the F-16s as the backbone, the everyday workhorses. The French Rafales, they bring the high-end sensors and the pinpoint precision strike capability. Then you've got modern Russian MiG-29s, which gives them even more flexibility. And tying it all together, you have the E-2 Hawkeyes, which are basically the flying eyes and ears of the entire fleet.
And of course, you can't talk about a modern military without talking about drones. For Egypt, these are what you call force multipliers. They handle all the routine surveillance over places like the Sinai and the Red Sea, which frees up those super valuable fighter jets for more critical missions. They're the low-cost option, the extra eyes that literally never get tired.
But here's the thing. What's the point of having all those fancy jets and drones if the sky right above your own bases is wide open to attack?
This is where we get to the silent, invisible network that makes a direct assault on Egypt so incredibly difficult.
We're talking about the IADS, their integrated air defense system. Just imagine this thick web of missile batteries protecting all the critical spots: the canal, air bases, major cities. Now, the goal isn't to be impenetrable, because nothing is. The goal is to make any attack so costly and so unpredictable that an enemy has to think twice, and then probably think a third time. And in an age of cheap drones and cruise missiles, that calculation is everything.
From the sky, let's head down to the water. Egypt's Navy has a really unique and demanding job. It has to project credible force into completely separate and vital seas at the same time.
And when we talk about the big-ticket items that really define this modern Navy, it all comes down to a single powerful number: 2.
That's right, 2 Mistral-class helicopter carriers. Now, these aren't just ships. They're floating command centers. They're mobile airfields. They can carry troops, helicopters, landing craft, the whole shebang. They give Egypt an amphibious capability that is simply unmatched by any other Arab state, period.
And this highlights a super important point. Modern naval power isn't just about the ships you have. It's about the bases that support them. The July 3rd base up north positions forces perfectly for the Mediterranean and the Libyan border. And down south, the Berenice complex is the huge logistics anchor for the Red Sea. Together, they cut down travel time and put fuel, weapons, and maintenance right where the action is.
So to put it all in context, are they the best at everything? No. Other regional navies have their own strengths. I mean, Algeria's submarines are seriously formidable, and Israel's tech is top-notch. But Egypt's unique advantage, its superpower, is that combination of amphibious command ships and a balanced fleet that's purpose-built to operate in 2 seas at once.
All right, let's get our boots on the ground and talk about the army. Because when borders get messy, it's the soldiers on the ground that ultimately decide what happens. And Egypt's army is built for a very specific mission.
So the mission here is really clear. This is not an army designed to project power deep into other continents, storming faraway capitals. It's a stabilizing force, built to surge quickly within its own neighborhood, secure some very long borders, and act as the anchor for joint operations with the Air Force and Navy.
You know, the long, difficult, and brutal fight against militants in the Sinai forced the army to evolve. It learned some really hard lessons about the importance of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. That's ISR. Basically, knowing what's happening before you act. It learned how to blend data from drones, ground sensors, and human sources into a single, usable picture, and it became a much more patient and precise force because of it.
And that brings us to this fundamental truth of warfare. You always see the flashy hardware on the news clips, but it's the unglamorous, backbreaking work of logistics that actually sustains a military through a real crisis. The ability to fuel, arm, and repair its forces is a core component of Egypt's power.
So, okay, we've looked at the air, the sea, and the land components. Let's try to bring it all together and give a final verdict. How powerful is Egypt's military really?
This table kind of gives us the scorecard. In terms of just sheer scale, manpower, infrastructure, it's absolutely a top-tier force in both Africa and the Arab world. In its ability to project naval power into 2 seas, it's #1 among Arab states, hands down. And its air defense is one of the most complex in the region, designed specifically to protect a global economic artery.
So to put it simply, these are the pillars of its strength. That incredibly dense air defense shield we talked about, a modernized navy with a unique amphibious capability, the immense strategic leverage that its geography gives it, and of course, the sheer size of its manpower and all its equipment.
But look, no military is perfect. The challenges are real. Trying to sustain a complex fleet from so many different countries is a logistical puzzle, for sure. It needs to keep growing its aerial refueling and its intelligence and surveillance assets. And, like pretty much every modern military, it has to worry about keeping its munition stockpiles thick enough for the crazy high consumption rates of modern warfare.
So let's end with this thought. Military power is so much more than just a list of tanks and jets. It's about purpose. And I would argue that maybe no other military on Earth is so completely defined, shaped, and driven by the geography of a single narrow waterway. When your entire national fortune depends on keeping that choke point open, you build a force that counts. And in its neighborhood, Egypt's military definitely counts.